Thank you for joining us for today's event, Colorado's Talent Pipeline Report, Workforce Stats and Essential Info for Libraries, presented by Caitlin McKinney, PhD, the Talent Pipeline Economist from the Colorado Workforce Development Council. It's a bit of a mouthful. This event is being hosted by the Colorado State Library. My name is Christy Moran. My pronouns are she, ella. I am the Adult Library Services Senior Consultant, or as I like to say, a librarian for librarians and library staff in the state of Colorado. Today's event will be recorded. It is being recorded now. And all registrants will receive an email with a link to the recording, a PDF of all the slides, and any resources shared. Our presenter will leave some time for questions at the end of their presentation. At the end of this session, I will be sharing a link to a survey, as I always do. The State Library uses this survey to inform our work and to report on the value of our programming. Please use the chat throughout as questions arise for you. And I or Kate Compton, who is my colleague and also on this call, will share them with our presenters when it's time for, or with our presenter when it's time for the Q&A. So let me go ahead and turn it over. I'm going to share my screen and I'm turning it over to Dr. McKinney. And Caitlin, just tell me when you need me to move through those slides.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for having me today. I apologize for not being on camera. I'm still waiting from OIT to get a piece to fix my camera. So I apologize for that, but I'm really excited to be here. And for those of you who I have not had the opportunity to work with yet, I'm Caitlin, as Christy just mentioned. I'm the Talent Pipeline Report Economist for the state. And this is a shared role between the Workforce Development Council and the Department of Higher Ed. And during this morning's presentation, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of some of our central findings that we saw during 2023 through our data lens, and provide a summary of key strategies that the state of Colorado and our partners can work from to better serve our job seekers, students, and employers. And to be as relevant as possible to all of you listening in today, we have done a data poll on librarian roles and its occupational outlook in the state. And that's saved for the end of the report. So we're saving the best for last today. And with that, we can dive into the next slide. So why does the Talent Pipeline Report matter, and what's the overall goal? Following legislative direction, the Colorado Workforce Development Council, in partnership with Higher Ed, began publishing the Talent Pipeline Report annually in 2014. And every year we tried to make tweaks and add nuances to really make its content as relevant as possible for the state of Colorado. For those of you who might not be too familiar with the report, this publication is meant to provide key insights on Colorado's economic outlook and needs surrounding talent in our state, really trying to utilize data to shape the fundamental structure of our narrative. And this is supposed to essentially do two different things. First, it gives us a better understanding of where the future of work is headed in Colorado. And second, it offers strategies and resources which will help policymakers make informed decisions to really bolster the statewide workforce system and keep Colorado's economy thriving. Next slide, please. So for today's discussion, we've structured the flow of the presentation to somewhat mirror the reports. First, highlighting general economic trends that we're seeing through our data lens across the state, and then moving into the bulk of our content, which is reported within the supply and demand sections. And each year, these latter two chapters really help drive the state strategies and inform policy recommendations, which will also be shared at a high level with you today. Next slide, please. So let's dive into the content just with a brief recap of the economic outlook in Colorado moving into 2024. Colorado continued to experience strong economic conditions in 2023, outpacing the nation over the last 12 months and ranking third best in the nation in terms of economic prosperity. And with more Coloradans actively working or looking to join the job market, the state has returned to its pre-pandemic employment to population ratio of nearly 76% as of August, remaining above national levels by over 6%. Colorado's labor force participation rate remained unchanged at about 69% for the fourth month in a row as of July, ranking fifth highest nationally relative to other states. And average hourly earnings saw roughly a 5% annual growth over the last year, outpacing the national average by more than $2 per hour. Next slide, please. So as of August, Colorado's labor market has added nearly 43,000 jobs statewide over the last 12 months. As CDLE, we track job changes across 7 major metropolitan areas, as well as the remaining balance of the state. And what we thought was really interesting was that this year we saw that nearly 64% of this job growth is taking place in non-metropolitan areas of the state, adding over 27,000 new jobs and creating economic opportunities for the rural workforce. So you can see these numbers as they relate to job growth on the right-hand side of the slide. And largest job gains statewide stem from accommodation and food services, government, and professional, scientific, and technical sectors. Next slide, please. At the same time as Colorado was surpassing national averages in terms of economic well-being, the demand for talent in the job market has remained at historically high levels for both Colorado and the US. And many employers are still struggling to really find that skilled workforce that they need in order to manage thriving businesses. And because of this, robust training, educational initiatives, and strategies to recruit undertapped talent from traditionally marginalized groups will continue to be crucial. Over the past year, there are on average 2.5 jobs for every unemployed person in Colorado. Next slide, please. And finally, high costs associated with living expenses and housing have become hurdles that we must really climb over in order to keep Colorado's workforce booming. This year, Colorado came in 43rd nationally in terms of affordable housing. And without available or affordable housing options, it's really difficult to prompt individuals to become residents and bolster the state's workforce. And it's equally challenging to sway younger generations to remain in the state and its workforce as adults. Next slide, please. But nevertheless, Colorado continues outperforming national levels in terms of job openings. Job growth creation is expected to continue into the foreseeable future, surging across all industry sectors in Colorado and increasing by more than 203,000 new jobs in the state over the next 5 years. And in addition, Colorado's population is slowing down in growth, it is aging, and it is diversifying. Birth rates have relaxed in recent years and are expected to plateau and then decline over the next decade. And this really changes the makeup of average households. And this impact has a major repercussion on the labor market and is amplified by the state's aging population. While the state's entire population is projected to grow by 10% by 2030, the 65 plus population is projected to increase by threefold during that same time frame. And another factor to consider on the horizon for Colorado is its changing race and ethnicity demographics. Between now and 2030, the shares of individuals identifying as Black or African American, Hispanic or Latinx, Asian American, and individuals who identify as 2 or more races are expected to grow significantly. And this is great for Colorado in general because it's really helping our state become more diverse in terms of its population. In addition, efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion will continue to be important, not only for recruitment and hiring, but also retention, as our state continues to become more racially and ethnically diverse. Next slide, please. So remote work, digital equity, digital literacy, and technological advances are expected to significantly impact the workforce. Ongoing labor shortages really have increased the demand for automation and new technologies, further changing the job market into 2024 and the foreseeable future. And one big question in particular on everyone's mind in 2023 and 2024 is, where are we going in terms of AI in the workforce? According to recent literature, an estimated 30% of time spent by US workers could be automated by AI technology by 2030. And in terms of job loss led by AI substitution, future outcomes really still remain uncertain. But at the same time, a lot of economists are predicting that automation will likely benefit workers associated with higher wage jobs. And these are linked to STEM, healthcare, transportation and warehousing, business, and law. And this really comes at a critical time when an additional 12 million occupational transitions are estimated to be needed within the next decade, really reinforcing the need for individuals to seize opportunities to reskill, upskill, or utilize transitional skills. And while higher wage jobs that require specialized skills are expected to surge by 17% between now and 2030, workers in lower wage jobs are up to 14 times more likely to need to change occupations than those in higher wage positions. And most, we can assume, will need additional skills to do so successfully. And when breaking down this data by gender, women are 1.5 times more likely to need to move into new occupations relative to men. And this is, likely driven by wage gaps that still remain in the labor market. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about labor force demand in our state. And each year, this chapter reports what employers and industry sectors are telling us about the direction of our economy. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide shows the first two columns of a larger table that we will build upon in the next few slides. But here we see column 1 and column 2 report Colorado's largest industry sectors ranked by employment levels in 2023. And the magnitude is shown down the second column and visualized in blue across industry employment numbers. So based on current employment, the industries associated with the highest job counts include healthcare and social assistance, professional, scientific, and technical services, and retail trade. The highest annual earners are those employed through professional, scientific, and technical services, manufacturing, and public admin. And then the industries that we can expect to have the highest growth over the next 5 years include healthcare and social assistance, adding more than 35,000 new jobs, accommodation and food services, adding roughly 30,000 new jobs, and professional, scientific, and technical services, adding just under 27,000 new positions in the state. And one section in particular that really attracts a lot of attention from our readers each year surrounds in-demand skills and identifying associated skill gaps. Providing these trends in the report really showcases what employers are telling us on skills needs in our state. So in the next several slides, we'll really dive into this topic. Based on active job postings alone in 2023, we can assume that core skills will continue to be more valuable to employers relative to technical skills in 2024. As unique job ads requiring specific core skills outweighed technical skills by nearly fourfold in 2023. And then the following slide will list out these in-demand skill sets by job ads in Colorado during this year. So the two tables on this slide report the leading technical and core skills side by side, sought after by Colorado employers between September 2022 and September 2023. So in 2023, over those past 12 months, Microsoft and coding platforms really stood out to me across the technical skills, while core skills related to more topics like critical thinking, were linked widely to communication. Things like collaboration, adaptability, problem solving, and customer service were, really what I saw across those. But if you are interested, you can browse the full list of Colorado's in-demand skills and certificates by employer postings, and this would be found in Appendix B of the online report. So now for the remainder of the presentation today, I'm going to mention Colorado's top jobs list a lot. So I first wanted to just go over what we mean when we say top jobs. We started creating this list since the report's first publication in 2014. And what it's meant to do is help inform job seekers, guide employers to create quality work environments, and inform program creators. So criteria measurements differ slightly from year to year based on economic conditions that are really specific to Colorado. In 2023, Colorado top jobs are occupations that are able to meet or surpass the following criteria that are listed on the next few slides. So these are occupations that are in high demand with projected net annual openings that are greater than 40 in the state, have strong expectations for growth over the next 10 years with an above average growth rate that's greater than 13% in 2023, and are capable of providing a living wage defined by the MIT Living Wage Calculator. And Colorado has very diverse regions, and this goes without saying that the cost of living can vary greatly by county and location. So regional information on living wages can be seen using the living wage or using the MIT Living Wage Calculator. And this is linked out in the online reports content, as well as lists of top jobs based on regional data can be viewed in Appendix A of the online report in case anyone is interested. So Tier 1 top jobs in 2023 are benchmarked by an income that can support a family of 3 in Colorado, assuming that there are 2 adults, 1 who's working, and 1 child. This past year, MIT had defined this category's minimum starting point earning threshold, just over $77,000 per year. And Tier 2 top jobs are benchmarked by an income that can support a family of 1 working adult in the state. MIT defines the statewide estimate as a minimum threshold of just under $40,000 per year. And again, while these averages reflect statewide estimates, it's also important to note that living wages often fluctuate from county to county, of course, based on the cost of living and accounting for varying differences in regional expenses, such as groceries, childcare, and housing. So this slide showcases fluctuations in top job titles over recent years. In 2023, Tier 1 top jobs increased by 5 occupations, and the Tier 2 top jobs list increased by 25 occupations relative to last year. So some jobs that were dropped in 2022 have rejoined the list, and what this signals to us is that employers have responded to higher costs of living by boosting wages. In 2023, there were 75 Tier 1 top jobs and 133 Tier 2 top jobs that met all 3 defining criteria. And the figure on the left-hand side of the slide shows the attainment value in the workforce relative to landing top jobs. The green lines allow viewers to compare 2022 levels and see where changes have occurred year over year. So in 2023, nearly 95% of Tier 1 and 65% of Tier 2 top jobs required some type of post-secondary education past a high school diploma or equivalent to be relevant for a particular role. And 85% of Tier 1 and 44% of Tier 2 top jobs required at least a bachelor's degree or higher for eligibility. So these outcomes reflect about a 9% and 17% jump from last year's report findings, respectively, and holds constant the upward trend in demand for degree completions in the state for top jobs. And then post-secondary non-degree credentials in Colorado, they're great because they provide an on-ramp towards post-secondary achievement. I hear people typically refer to these things as post-secondary non-degree awards across CDHE and CDE. And these achievements tend to land jobs that often require an industry-recognized credential, but no degree. In the past year, the state has really prioritized industry-informed stackable credential pathways that are able to broaden how we define advancement through post-secondary education. Currently in the US, more than 70% of post-secondary students are considered quote unquote non-traditional. And this means that they are working with individuals with children that are outside the ages of 18 and 22. And to me, what this really does is support the case for lifelong learning. And this type of attainment also provides a very flexible framework that avoids the financial opportunity costs that learners sometimes face by leaving the labor market to grow from further education. And it additionally allows students to jump onto a stackable credential pathway and bolster their educational attainment over time. In 2023, there were 403 Tier 2 and 375 Tier 1 top job openings associated with this credential category. And then looking beyond top jobs in the state, in terms of total jobs in Colorado, nearly 24,000 openings were associated with this award category over the last 12 months, accounting for roughly 5.5% of total jobs in the state. Now I'm going to mention some key takeaways from Colorado's labor force supply trends. And in this section every year, it really focuses on how well we as a state are doing at producing individuals with the skills needed to obtain good quality jobs. So the figure on this slide reports Colorado's labor force participation rate broken out by age and sex. Males between the ages of 25 and 54 retained the highest labor force participation rate in the state over the past year, while data across both males and females in the youngest and oldest age groups are associated with the lowest participation rates. And I think that this graph is kind of interesting because it allows viewers to recognize the similar trajectories that males and females tend to follow in the labor market across all age groups. However, males do consistently tend to have higher workforce participation rates in every age group outside of the 20 to 24 bracket, where females outpace men by about 1%. And this general trend, linking higher participation rates to males in Colorado, could be attributed to a lot of different working factors, but including things like lingering gender inequities across wages and childcare constraints. That being said, however, while women do have mostly a lower labor force participation rate in the state, recent state trends show a different strong recovery for women in Colorado during 2023. So women were initially more adversely impacted by the workforce, in the workforce by the pandemic, but shifts in economic indicators are starting to tell a interesting and really cool news story in our state. The unemployment rate for women in Colorado is currently about 0.5 percentage point lower than the gender's pre-pandemic levels. And between September 2022 and August 2023, women's unemployment rate sat at about 3% compared to the nearly 4% rate for men during that same period. And this outcome can likely be explained in part by the expansion of telework in the state, providing more flexible options for families and making it easier to rejoin the labor market. And the following slide really expands further on the topic of telework in our state. So in Colorado and the US, while the percentage of full-time remote work has observed slight downticks since 2021, I think it's safe to assume that remote work and hybrid work will continue in large where it is feasible. The table and heat map on this slide highlight the metro areas across the US with the greatest share of remote workers. And so you'll notice that 2 metro areas on the list are linked to Colorado's workforce, with the city of Boulder representing the highest share of remote workers out of any metropolitan area in the nation at 32%. Denver also made this list, ranking 9th in the US overall at roughly 24%. And while quality of life, high earning potential, and reliable broadband access factor heavily into attracting high shares of remote workers, education also plays a significant role in remote work attainability. Those with higher levels of education have an increased chance of remote work in the labor market, as they can more easily find occupations that offer the flexibility of working from home rather than in person. And the figure on the left-hand side of this slide shows Colorado's employment rate by education level. Here we see that as educational attainment increases, unemployment levels mostly decrease. And the reason for a relatively slightly higher unemployment percentage reported in the third population outcome is likely because a sample associated with some college or associate's degrees contains multiple categories within it, such as individuals who took college courses and then chose to discontinue their education. So because of this, our estimates are likely biasing upwards unemployment levels for Coloradans that are associate degree holders. Now we're going to move into our strategies section, covering several different approaches, which will be highlighted in the next couple of slides, but we also encourage everyone to read through this section of the report for more information, because due to time constraints, I we don't have all the time to go through all the strategies, but you can read about the additional strategies in the report and the recent work that's going on across the state. So for the first strategy talked about today, it surrounds a more inclusive workforce. A tight labor market has the opportunity to provide employers with a competitive edge for acquiring talented workers, as well as prospects for advancement and equity. And for this reason, our first strategy relates to populations with overlooked potential. So over the past 3 years, spiking demand and labor shortages led many employers to consider what was traditionally discounted candidates with potential and provide them with training if they fell short with respect to relevant experience. And this dynamic movement has provided a leading example for employers and job seekers alike in regards to the importance of agility and lifelong learning. And so to attract and retain talent on the horizon, implementing inclusive policies and programs that incent and aid all of Colorado's demographics will be really vital in ensuring that our state and its residents continue to prosper. The next strategy we'd like to highlight today surrounds digital equity. So as of July, an estimated 190,000 Coloradan households had little to no online access. And this really creates inequity problems that impact workforce as well as the quality of life. Over the last few years, the state began accelerating actions to bolster digital equity. And this was done with federal and awarded funding in order to connect Coloradan households with efficient digital access. Currently, more than 90% of households are equipped with adequate broadband access in the state, but continuing to build onto these efforts, in July of this year, Colorado was approved $827 million in federal funding to boost this number up and ensure that at least 99% of Coloradan households are provided with adequate internet by 2027. And these endeavors will largely prioritize underserved and rural communities in the state who have tended to face larger challenges with digital access. So the final strategy presented today surrounds how we as a state are doing at leveraging federal and state funding, specifically centering on funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or the IIJA, which I have such a hard time with this acronym, so bear with me, everyone. But funding from this act is estimated to create an additional 43,000 jobs in Colorado, which is quite significant. And these are jobs that are classified as high need and high demand. And they're within construction, broadband and telecommunications, clean energy and technology, and conservation sectors. Additionally, occupations linked to the IIJA efforts are typically high paying, with average earnings equal to nearly $98,000 per year. And so in order to continue to inform decision makers and predict ongoing workforce needs in Colorado associated with this act, the CWDC funded the creation of the Colorado Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act Workforce Dashboard, which is quite a lot to say too, and is intended to guide workforce development efforts related to the Act's funding allocations, as well as provide labor market information data on supply and demand needs, fulfillment and projections, and what that looks like moving forward. And this virtual tool is accessible to the public and is directly linked in the online report. If you would like, or if anyone's interested, I can also provide a link in the chat so that everyone attending today can explore the dashboard at your leisure. And with that, let's move on to the best part. So as promised, the last part of the presentation today surrounds trends that we are seeing currently in our state surrounding librarians, curators, and archivists occupations. So let's jump into the current workforce trends that we're seeing in these roles. So here we see employment trends and projections over the next 3 years for occupations within this group, as well as average median wages, annual growth rates, and annual demand. And so annual demand that's reported in the 5th column represents the projected need for new entrants into a occupation. And of course, new entrants are needed due to expected growth, and as well to replace workers who left the occupation due to factors such as retirement or deciding to switch careers. And then in the last column, forecasted annual growth is represented to show the expected change in jobs due to national and long-term trend projections. And this is sourced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's also supposed to kind of provide trends that include local factors such as industry mix and population growth. So while the highest need for workers is expected to be from library technicians and librarians and media collection specialists, we're seeing the smallest forecasted growth relative to previous years. So you can see in the employment graph, it shows historical numbers and then is separated by the forecasted amount. And because these occupations saw such a large spike in employment after the pandemic, the forecast is projected to kind of climb into upcoming years still, but likely not as quickly as it was previously. And again, this is largely due to just catching up from employment drops that happened after the pandemic, but it's still expected to be very stable and have a high annual demand across all occupations. So based on the 5 occupations that were detailed in the previous slide, included in this group, in the table on the bottom of this slide, the mean annual earning level is approximately $57,000 per year. So based on the 2023 Tier 1 and Tier 2 top job earning thresholds, this would be enough to support a household of 1 in Colorado, given the current cost of living standards that are specific to our state. And experienced individuals tend to make quite a bit more, on average spiking up median annual wages by more than $9,000 per year. And this is shown by the bar graph in blue on the top of this slide. So looking at occupation demographics, the highest share of individuals in this sector are between 35 and 44, are between or within the 35 and 44 age bracket. About 90% of individuals identify themselves as white and non-Hispanic or Latinx, which shows that there's room to grow here in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Nearly 3/4 of individuals are females. So this also suggests efforts could be ramped up to attract and retain more individuals identifying as male in this sector. And finally, on this slide, education and training requirements are extremely high for this occupation. 100% requires some type of post-secondary completion to be eligible for a role prior to onboarding. And if we wanted to pop onto the next slide, we can see this across the sector's talent pool supply. So the majority of individuals employed in these roles in Colorado are highly educated. So you guys are all brainiacs, with the largest percentage of this talent pool having a bachelor's degree or master's degree. And you can see this level by the light and dark green areas of the figure on the top-hand side of the slide. And then looking at the table on the bottom half, as mentioned on the previous slide, each of these occupations requires some type of post-secondary credential past high school, with the majority of them typically requiring a master's degree to be relevant for a role. And I thought that was really interesting because I often don't see that. And I just thought that was really neat, especially with looking at how many people in the sector that have such high educational attainment. You're all very high past the average bar for the state, and that's really neat. So I just thought that was kind of cool to highlight. But if we want to pop on to the next slide, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Again, I'm so sorry for not being on camera, but I left my state email there. So if I could do any more data pulls for you or presentations for anything across your organizations or anything like that, if anybody has any random data questions or if I can help out in any way, I'd be very happy to. And again, just thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. McKenney. Workforce is a really, so for in 2 ways, right? So outside of our field, outside of the library and information science field, it's really important to a lot of the work that we do. at libraries with the public. And it's also really interesting and important within our field too. So thank you so much for sharing information related to both of those things. We do have some questions in the chat. Because we're recording this and a lot of folks are going to be able to watch the recording, I'd like to ask them aloud and see if you can answer them. So I would like to go back to at least one person would like a link to the dashboard that you mentioned.
Sure.
If you could please share it in the chat, and then of course we'll share that in the subsequent emails. Someone else, Victor asks, in regards to the slide about access to broadband connectivity, are the ability to own and or not to own a smartphone included in the results?
So they are not. So that would be so the only thing that we observe is the broadband access through computers or iPads or something similar, but we do not include smartphones. And that's based on OIT requests or OIT's data, and they thought it wouldn't be. What they were worried about is that if we included everyone with a smartphone, then we would basically say, okay, well, almost every house in Colorado does have access to broadband somehow. And then we would be not being able to serve those underserved communities that need access, via a different platform or different device.
Just to state this, OIT is the acronym for the Office of Information Technology, specifically the Colorado Office of Information Technology. That is one of the partners in the Digital Equity Plan. I've sent quite a few of you who are on here are part of the Digital Equity Committee, so that's some work that we are a part of. And again, we will put more information related to the Digital Equity Plan also in the email, because I think that's a really good point. A point to kind of discuss for us in workforce. So I have a question now specifically about the library, the category, the slides that were about our field. Are there definitions for what this report considers, quote, library technicians and librarians / media collections specialists?
Yes, I can pull that for you. So the data pull that I did for the last section of this presentation today was from Chimera. It's an online econometric modeling platform. And I will find out, they use definitions from the BLS. So I can send, if that's okay with you, Chrissy, I can send you the list of those definitions in an email, and then possibly you could share it out with everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. The BLS is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think a lot of us know that, but just kind of heads up for those who didn't. I also have a couple other questions. No problem. I was like, this is like my geek world, so I'm happy to share it. I have a question. Where does aviation fall in the job categories?
Gosh, that's been a big conversation amongst a lot of my colleagues at the Workforce Development Council. And I will find out exactly where, but we have a team that works at the Workforce Development Council at CDLE, and they do all career pathways mapping, and they work with individuals from Parent Consulting, which does a lot of like workforce development efforts as well. And they map out together the career pathways, and they never want to double count occupations. Because, you could say there's a lot of like different occupations, say like in manufacturing, that could be considered in, in two different industry categories and sectors. So I will find out, and I can also try to find out I can send the most recent update for all the job classifications into all the career pathways, if that's helpful.
That would be helpful. Thank you, Dr. McKinney. So just kind of some of our libraries who are here today are public libraries, and we also support and have quite a few registrants who are from higher education libraries. And so career pathways as mapped to workforce, as mapped to like what programs those schools have, would be incredibly useful. So thank you for offering to do that. I have another question, a little different, but related to new Americans, the incoming workforce population. Any advice for our libraries for referring migrants to work? I have made library guides for workforce centers, job centers, and day labor places. But any other advice? Any advice for resources?
Yes. So I would direct the first resource that I would go to is I'm so bad at this. I work with somebody who's so good at sending links and chats while they talk. But it's from the office. So bear with me, everyone. But it's from the Office of New Americans. And if anyone is interested, uh, the Catherine who leads that, she's wonderful, and she would love to talk and put time on her calendar to talk about all the efforts and initiatives that they're doing. I'd also like to say that this report, we decided kind of at the 11th hour of this year in December that we were going to make this a quarterly report. So next, the next issue is going to be all about learners, so K through 12 as well as adult learners. And we are intending to showcase, I can't completely confirm because it's still in its drafting process. It has to go through a lot of different approvals, but we do have a section talking about international migration trends and refugees, and linking out to sources. But I would check out the Office of New Americans. If someone would like to me to introduce them to the lead on that in the state. Again, she's wonderful and very knowledgeable about everything, and could really help out with that, I think. And also in terms of data resources, I would also recommend My Colorado Journey, which is linked out into we just revamped our data dashboard. So that has, links out to the Talent Pipeline Report, the Office of Labor Market Information at CDLE, which provides tons of different data, their gateway site, the State Demographer's Office, as well as different efforts across different offices and trends that we're seeing, as well as the higher ed and Department of Education data. So I will try to link all of those in the chat. Just bear with me. I'm sorry.
I'm linking them as we go. So like
Thank you.
everybody should know that I wanted to make My Colorado Journey a hidden gem and have a virtual partner forum for the month of February. And unfortunately we didn't because we had this instead, and they're revamping the website. It is a fantastic resource. We can totally use it. If you have any questions about it, please email me about them because I will answer. I've taken like the 8-week module training. We have some more questions on from librarians. So what resources and programs would you recommend that libraries have to support workforce development? Any particular sector training that we could provide access to?
Gosh, yes. I would say, so the Office of Apprenticeships and it is wonderful. Also, the Department of Education is doing a lot of great things in terms of efforts to get kids involved in being great students overall, as well as being interested in career pathways and what they want to do after college, as well as mental health efforts across students and teachers right now. But definitely I would check out the Office of Apprenticeships is doing a lot of great stuff right now. I will link that out in the chat too. And if anyone would like to be connected to their lead, she is also wonderful, and I'd be happy to do that. Please just reach out to me too, if that's the case, and I'd be happy to connect.
I put in the chat, we should all have our apprenticeship posters because they were very hard to get them created for us. Please let me know if you want them and you don't have them, putting the apprenticeship hub link in the website as well. Let me go back to a couple questions. We have one more. This is specific to library industry, I think. Would the relevance of core skills also transfer to the library industry? Curious about what other skills are most desired within our industry.
So what we're seeing right now, and you know, it was briefly mentioned, but you know, these presentations are really at a high level, but it's briefly mentioned during this presentation, but it's kind of neat. I mean, we're seeing like what employers are wanting is, you know, I think like 10 years ago, all employers wanted was like all these technical skills. And what we're seeing right now is like core or essential skills are really in high demand. And globally, what I'm reading right now is that empathy is number one. So they really want people who are empathetic. Um, they want people who are reliable, who will come to work, like, you know, they can count on will come to work and are, you know, can really like work and communicate with individuals in like a kind and problem solving way. So, and these are all things that, you know, when I was applying for jobs years ago, I never even thought to put something like that on my resume. So I think that that's kind of neat to like kind of, you know, kind of talk about with the individuals who are job seekers in Colorado about, you know, what they can really showcase and how valuable these skills are.
I wanted to mention as well, Kate Bruner, who's another one of my colleagues, has put in the chat that the talent pipeline report does have quite a bit of information about tweens, teens, and emerging adults for future, particularly speaking of future career pathways and career connected learning initiatives. That's relevant not just to adult services librarians, which is where a lot of us fall, but for teens and youth services, other youth services librarians as well. Any other questions we can ask Caitlin now that we have her, or we can put it in the chat and I'll read it aloud. All right, I'll ask you a question, Caitlin. You've given us a lot of resources, a lot of statewide resources in particular, so thank you so very much. However, one of the resources that I think is probably the most useful for our local libraries are the local workforce development centers. So how would you recommend that our libraries perhaps leverage this information to connect with the local workforce centers?
Oh gosh, you know, so with my position, basically after every December, sometime throughout the year, I present to them, and you know, I've just had such great experiences with all of them, and they are just, you know, they're very hardworking. They really care. They want to make a difference in their area and help Coloradans. And I mean, um, I would be happy to connect everyone to the people who I'm in contact with there. And they would be so happy, I think, to hear from, you know, to be connected with you guys and to do work together. And yeah, I mean, they're so responsive, and it's been such an easy, you know, kind of like seamless relationship building with them. But also, if you, I'm sure that they can also send everyone like updated. I know that they do monthly newsletters about the work that they're doing and different changes that they're seeing, and you know, surrounding needs and demand in the state. So if that would be helpful.
Libraries will always welcome resources for local support and local partnerships. So please do send those. Anything Caitlin sends me, I will likewise send to all of the registrants. We do have another question. This one very particular to follow up on AI. How do you feel AI will be employed in libraries, and what skills do you suggest library professionals develop in order to help individuals with the fear of AI?
You know, this is such a great question, and it's such a it's serious. It's on, you know, across all sectors. I feel like it's on everyone's mind. You know, we don't really know where it's going to go, except we know that there's so much job creation that it's going to create and spur, and it's going to be very rapid over the next, you know, 10 to 15 years. I mean, which is great because there's going to be all these new, you know, job opportunities, and But, we do know that, a lot of individuals are going to have to upskill, reskill, or like utilize their transitional skills in order to be relevant for these new roles. And in terms of that, we don't even know, the, magnitude of that yet, in order to forecast it. And in terms of new jobs, I mean, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is, it can't catch up with the new job creation yet. So we can't even really track it through data, about, right now, like quantum is really a big focus on individuals' minds, especially at the Department of Higher Ed. And so, we're trying to kind of map this out, but it's hard because we don't even have, occupational groups or occupations that are, defined within this through the census yet. So we are kind of lagging behind, and that makes it hard to kind of track what are going to be the impacts in AI, but it's also exciting because there are so many new opportunities. But what I would say is, if it's helpful, I can also send over a list of resources for like short-term training programs. There's a lead at the Department of Higher Ed who does short-term stackable credentials and is trying to kind of map and prepare for all of this need for individuals who need to, take courses, short-term courses especially, that can help for stackable credential career pathways, as well as help in the short term to fill in all of these new occupations that are expected. So, if somebody could take like a 3-week intensive coding course, then they could be, eligible for a particular role in the state without, having to completely step out of the workforce for a long time. And we're continuing to expand on different opportunities like that, and different resources. So I can reach out to my two bosses on each side and see if they could provide a list of resources that we could give to you, and make that available to everyone.
Thank you. We have a lot of interest within our field about the way that AI can be used in our field, and also in supporting the public who has their own concerns or questions about AI, both impacting their privacy and impacting the workforce. So any resources that you send, again, will be very, very welcome. I see some conversation about AI in the chat. However, I do not see any other questions. I went ahead and put the survey for attendees in the chat for today's program. If you would like to see anything else about any of the topics that we spoke about or came up in today's presentation, please put that in the survey, because you know that I read them and I put these together based on what you guys say. We have 5 more minutes. Does anybody else have a question that they'd like Dr. McKinney to answer, or perhaps take a stab at just kind of giving her thoughts on? Okay, not seeing any other questions. We have just about 5 minutes. So again, thank you very much, Dr. McKinney, for reviewing the talent pipeline report. This is an annual report. This is the first time that I've invited someone from the team that creates it and reviews it and analyzes that data to come in. It will not be the last time. Thank you so much for being with us. You guys are going to get a bunch of resources with a bunch of links and PDFs related to this and all the questions that came up today. I'll put the survey link in the chat again. I'm going to end our recording. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Dr. McKinney, for presenting with us today.
Thanks so much again for having me.